Thanks for your company and thanks for staying with me on the marketplace. Let's start off with a very fair story. The Asantehene Otumfuo II has called on investors to support Ghana's private sector to engage in more manufacturing than importing. He believes this will enhance exports and strengthen our economy, especially the local currency. The Asantehene was speaking at a reception for investors who took part in the World to Meet Ghana Investment Forum and Dinner Ball in Kumasi. Prince Apia was there and now reports.
We have also been expanding and modernizing our traditional markets. The problem, though, is that the malls and virtually all our shops and markets are filled almost entirely with imported goods. This is the underlying cause of the constant pressure on the value of our city. As more and more shop owners seek foreign exchange to import goods for their shops. To policymakers, this is a massive problem. But to the business mind, the real entrepreneur, this is an opportunity. What greater opportunity can there be for manufacturing industry to fill this vast market? Not to talk about opportunities for exports. We have to ask why, in spite of the vast opportunities, the industrial landscape in Ghana is so barren.
Meanwhile, the Central Bank has revealed it is collaborating with the Ministry of Finance to implement a new National Financial Development and Inclusion Strategy. Second Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Elsie Ado Awaji, says the move is meant to increase access to financial services. She was speaking at the World Meet in Ghana Investors Forum to woo investors into the country.
Gentlemen, in the banking sector, regulatory reforms we have recently embarked upon have ensured that banks are better capitalized and better governed, and we have consolidated the industry from some 35 banks to currently 23 banks. And we can say that these banks are much better capitalized, more liquid, stronger, better governed, and employ better risk management systems and processes to ensure that the monies that you deposit with them are safer. We have also strengthened our regulatory and supervisory framework so that it is more aligned with international best practices, including the Basel II and III core capital framework, as well as the IFRS 9 framework. That ensures that bank capital is more transparent and reflects the losses they make from bad assets that they invest in much earlier on. This, ladies and gentlemen, helps to assess better the financial strength of banks sooner than later, as was the case before.
Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana has been engaging in some reforms in the financial sector, which saw many banks collapse and others consolidated. Madam Awaji says the reforms have been aligned with international best regulatory practices to prevent further banking sector crisis.
That the Central Bank, working with the Ministry of Finance, is implementing a new National Financial Development and Inclusion Strategy that seeks to improve access to financial services from about 53% currently to 75% in 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, this means that there are opportunities in the financial sector. It's going to come in on board to provide more access to everyone who needs access to financial services. And in particular, more access to loans, more access to savings products, and more innovative payments channels.
And in another development, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has reiterated government's plans to make Ghana a regional hub in the area of financial services and within the petroleum sector. Ken Ofori-Atta says government's goal is to attain a market leadership in the next 5 years. The move is to strengthen the economy to drive in more investors for the expected economic growth and transformation. He spoke at the World Meet in Ghana Investors Forum.
So, Mr. Chairman, in addition to this, it's our focus on Ghana becoming a regional hub. And the areas that we have targeted include financial services, aviation and logistics, petroleum services, religion of our national cathedral, education, peace as a peace-loving nation, and a place that investors will feel comfortable in the very long run. Our goal as a government is more ambitious than economic stability. It is economic transformation. It is changing the structure of the economy, improving public services to facilitate business and reduce the current drudgery of accessing public services. In the next 5 years, we want a markedly different country. One where the student enrollment in primary and secondary education is above 80%. One where our precious mothers throughout the country do not die because of childbirth. A country where the produce of our hard-working farmers are processed domestically. A country where our people are able to live in decent housing. A country where every formally employed person has access to a mortgage instrument. A country where there's the option to travel to Kumasi by rail within an hour and a half. A country where death from floods is a thing of the past. A country where business have access to cheap, long-term capital and reliable power. A country of entrepreneurs, and a country where public services are increasingly automated to reduce the incidence and the scourge of corruption and improve efficiency. This is.
And those were some excerpts of the World Meet in Ghana forum held over the weekend in the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi. Let's turn our attention now to some developments within the oil and gas sector. Parliament last Friday directed the Ministry of Energy to renegotiate the government's amended agreement with AGM Aker Energy for oil exploration in the deep southwest Tano oil block. There have been some concerns about government's proposal to amend the original 2013 deal, arguing it will reduce Ghana's holding in the block from 43% to 18%. According to a section of the public, the amended deal is a rip-off and will result in the nation losing $10 billion as a result. We are joined by energy expert Ishmael Ejukumehin to take a dispassionate and objective analysis of this current development. Good afternoon and welcome to the marketplace, Ishmael.
Good afternoon, Emmanuel.
All right, so I believe you've been following these developments from last week. What's your take on this whole, brouhaha?
You call it brouhaha. I think there are issues that need to be discussed. Obviously, if you have a field where you had substantial stake in that field, and that field your interest is being diluted, I think there is cause for some issues to be flagged. Except that we always end up turning the whole issue into politics, and we lose the essence of the key issues that are at stake. Truth of the matter is that yes, we had some stake in the field in the block in question, and it was part of a strategy, and I believe it's still part of a strategy for GNPC to increase their interest and stake in most of these fields that are going to be developed in the future. GNPC had a strategic direct focus of becoming a world-class operator within 15 years. Okay, so what they were going to do was to take active role in exploration and also development of the field. So if you look at some of this agreement is not the only one. I think in the petroleum agreement that we have with Kamak Energy, Exploroco's share is actually around 25%. So it was a strategic decision that was taken a couple of years ago, and Exploroco was actually incorporated in 2012. So that's the context and the background. But the other side of the story that I believe maybe nobody is telling us is the fact that the more stake you have in the field, the more your financial obligation and your commitment is. and at least we have history to guide us. Jubilee, from the discovery till they started producing, about $4.2 billion was spent. I think for the Sankofa field is running into $7 billion or so US dollars. So if our current holding in this field, it's as previously is around 43%, what that means is that we will always be required to look for a lot of money, and in not just developing a field, but this time around we're going to go into exploration. And the areas where we're looking at are also deep, ultra deep water, and it's extremely expensive. So listening to the argument on the majority side, the government side, we will need to raise substantial amounts of money to be able to play this active role that we're looking at.
Yes.
So that probably fed into the justification for attempting to make sure that we get other players to come and support, and that will obviously mean diluting your stake. But what I haven't heard, it's what informed the portion, the proportion, the amount of our stake that we are going to see to Accra Energy, because there must be some analysis that inform why we're saying that Exploroco would actually reduce completely from 24% to 0. It defeats some strategic objective that we set out to achieve, and at least even leaving them with a few percentage points of stake in the field would still have helped them contributed to the development of the field. But I'm worried when we start banding figures around things like $10 billion. I'm wondering where those figures are coming from, because if you make those generalized computations, you risk overstating some potential benefit. What nobody is telling us is the fact that any well that you sink in those territories, you risk losing close to $50 to $60 million, and that's if you don't find anything. So that has to be put in its right context, because if you just oppose the cost to the potential benefit, which is not certain, but the cost is almost certain, then if you don't have those kinds of money, you probably will want to dilute your stake. But it has to be based on some rigorous analysis.
Okay. Now, Ishmael, if I get what you say right, or if I'm to go per your earlier explanation, then it seems to me like we're caught in between the deep blue sea and the devil. Now, increasing our stake in that oil block and then looking for money elsewhere to come and explore ourselves as a nation, and also relinquishing the block and giving a major stake to international operators, which is the most appropriate?
We haven't actually relinquished our share. We've actually said that from what they are saying, we're going to reduce our interest from where it used to be to what has been proposed. There are trade-offs. When you decide to keep those high stake, you win big if we make a major discovery. But in trying to get the resource to exploit, you will be required to also pay more. So if you have the money to invest, then obviously we should be moving towards the era where we're controlling a lot of the stake, like most of these IOCs, national oil companies, are doing in other parts of the world. But at this stage, if you don't have money and you don't think that you'll be able to mobilize the money very quickly, it is going to delay the development and the exploration work in the field, and you end up sitting on something that could potentially bring you some revenue, but you don't have money to develop. One could argue that, yes, you could borrow money to do the exploration, but I think that's very, very risky, considering the fact that you can't guarantee those returns and you might end up losing big. But I think the idea behind increasing our stake is a strategic decision that we shouldn't lose sight of. And as we continue to develop our industry, I think progressively we should be increasing those stakes and building upon our capacity to operate some of the fields ourselves. There are some other fields that we still have interest in there. Let's make sure that we pursue that strategic objective and we don't lose sight of that and worry about the risk. In any business, the higher the risk, the higher your return.
All right. Now, so lastly, before you go, do you think that the minority have considered, that aspect of the risk factor, where we could hit a dry hole if we go, increase our stakes and do the exploration ourselves instead of and losing that so much money instead of giving to another operator?
I don't think so. I think if you listen to the benefits, they're only talking about the benefit. I think nobody is doing that. They are simply probably like they will multiply some rate by potential discovery and total reserve and say this is how much. It will be interesting to see how they do that, but I don't think they've done that. But the other side to Emmanuel is that once you make a major discovery, those exploration costs, you don't lose them entirely. You'll be able to recover through the production, but
with time,
the risk, with time, yes. So if you have, I think it's a trade-off. Okay. And I don't think they're telling us, at least it will be fair for us to say that yes, it's risky, but maybe as a people, let's try and take those risks so that nobody. I remember when we said GMPC should play a major role in the industry. When GMPC said they were borrowing $700 million around 2015, 2014, we were the same people who started complaining, you see. And these monies are huge monies that is not even billions of dollars that we're talking about. So as a nation, and I think that's why these decisions will have to be situated within a broader scheme of things, a bigger picture that says, okay, let's take those risks, and if we gain, we gain. If we don't gain, we live with the consequences as a people.
All right. Many thanks for your time. Ishmael Ejukumhene is an energy expert. He's been sharing his thoughts on Parliament's decision to allow government side to amend or to renegotiate the amended AGM-Ake energy agreement. Away from that, partners for the construction of affordable housing units known to be the Akufo-Addo flats have presented a model of the first 100,000 houses to government. This follows the agreement of a partnership between the German engineering firm Clever House, CH Africa Group and government to execute the project in all 275 constituencies of the country. Minister of Works and Housing Samuel Atachia explains the Ministry of Finance is working to get some financial service providers to support with mortgage terms.
The fundamental issue is that would you create an enabling environment for the people in the low-income brackets to go and own the houses? This is what has engaged the imagination and attention of the president, and is moving the finance minister and my good self to create an enabling environment for the mortgage thing. So granted, it is said that this house is going to cost, even $15,000 or let's say $10,000. How many Ghanaians can put their hands in their pocket or issue a check for it to be paid? But if you created a mortgage arrangement, then they can own the houses within a stretch of time, say 15 years, through what we call the instrumental discharges, which they have to enter into with banks. So this is how you define affordability. Granted, we said even we are giving you container houses, and one container house is $5,000. Is it cheap or is affordable, or you want to give it any description? It's a factor of your ability to pay. So I have measured affordability as ability to pay, not just the price. Granted, they said the house you see here is $8,000. How many journalists in this country can say, I got into my account, I took $8,000 to obtain the house? But all these arrangements will be good because they said the cost of this structure will be 60% down the conventional way of building. So if the conventional way of building is going to cost us $54,000 and you have a 60% downward payment, then my brother, we are making some moves.
This is live on the marketplace. Let's take a look now at some developments on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And Gideon Amwening-Chi is a market researcher with DataBank. He's also joining us via Skype to give us updates. Gideon, good afternoon. Welcome to the marketplace.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much.
All right. So, could you give us a recap of the market last week, how it ended, and how it began this week, plus the outlook?
Okay. So, at the end of last week's trading session, both the Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index and the DataBank Stock Index, which tracks the 20 most liquid stocks of the exchange, declined. Accordingly, their year-to-date losses deepened. The Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index recorded, currently is at a year-to-date loss of 10.01%, while the DSI 20 Index is at negative 9.70%. On trading activity, there were 6 laggards and no gainer. On the top of the laggards list was EcoBank, which lost 1 cedi 8 pesos to 6 cedi 72 pesos. Cowbank followed with a 9 peso loss to 88 pesos, while Societe Generale was third on the laggards list with a loss of 6 pesos to 75 pesos. For this week, we tip GCB Bank and EcoBank. In addition, we have also MTN to record some price gains due to demand pressures. On the other hand, EcoBank Transnational and Societe Generale are projected to lose some pesos on account of selling pressures.
Okay, so how are developments on the currency market as well as the commodity market? What should we be expecting? Still maintaining the marginal stability of the cedi against the dollar?
Yes, we still expect the cedi to be stable. For last week, the cedi depreciated by 0.04% against the dollar to end at 5.09 cedis. The pound also lost 1.9. The cedi lost 1.9% against the pound to 6.69, while the euro, the cedi also lost 0.54% against the euro to 5.70%. But we expect it to, the cedi to remain stable. On the commodities market, cocoa gained $37 per metric ton to $2,372 per metric ton. Gold lost $6.70 per ounce to $1,280 per ounce, while crude oil lost 30 cents per barrel to $71.47 per barrel.
All right, thank you very much for that update. Gideon Amwening-Chi is a market researcher with DataBank. He's been bringing us up to speed with development on the Ghana Stock Exchange. He gave us a recap of what occurred last week on the stock markets, as well as an outlook for this week. Before we end it all, Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress, Dr. Yao Ban, has disclosed that the union will petition government to review the recently announced import duties. According to him, the reduction in the benchmark values is not a favorable policy. Dr. Ban is calling on government to protect local manufacturers and farmers to enable them compete on the international market.
Soon here, the jobs will be created elsewhere. That's our concern. But I was making a point that the Vice President was right to say some of the practices at the ports are archaic and we need to get rid of them. So the policy measures that he announced partly get rid of some of them. But to really say everything that comes to this country, import duty is halved, was for us premature. We should do something else to address that. I think one of the things we will do, number one, on this social council is to make sure that jobs are protected. And one of the things is to introduce tariffs where they should be introduced. Why should we not protect our rice industry? Why should we not protect our poultry industry? Even within the WTO rules, we are allowed to impose 99% tax on poultry, 99% tax on rice imports. Why are we not using that? Why rather are we reducing it? I hope they will listen to us, because we cannot accept a situation where our farmers are going to compete with farmers that are subsidized from Europe and elsewhere. It's not right. Why should we look at our wood processing industry? The carpenters are all going out of job because everybody now is getting used to imported, imported furniture from China, from Turkey. And they advertise it, and we are happy people going around looking for imported items. We shouldn't do that to our country. No country that develops on imports. You cannot develop on imports. And that is why we should not encourage importation. What the Vice President announced was effectively encouraging import. And that initially is going to benefit those individuals who are importing. But we don't think it is a good policy.
Does that mean that the council will be looking into some of these matters as well?
Exactly. Because if you talk about jobs, all the things that affect jobs creation is open. And the president, the Minister of Finance is going to chair. And he has assured us that he's going to be very transparent and he's going to allow everything to be discussed. That is why the very first thing under the terms of reference of this MOU, we said there's going to be frank discussions.
Organized labor obviously not happy with import duty reduction as announced by Dr. Bawumia a while ago. And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. We are free. Join me again, same time tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.